Appreciate you coming today. We're going to get started so we can get finished. Y'all are great. Y'all are river warriors. Thanks for being here. Thanks for really standing up for the river. My name is Mark Perry. I'm the Executive Director of Florida Oceanographic, and I'm also currently the chair, as according to your agenda. And I have with me our other leadership team groups. We've got Jackie Thurlow-Lippisch, who's already stood up. There we go. We've got George Jones, Jim Moyer, and of course Daryl Brand. And we appreciate all their help. Charles Grande wasn't able to join us today, but we are all members of a group that's trying to help fight for clean water in our river. And fortunately, without discharges, we've seen some clean water recently, which is a good thing. We've got a lot of activity on Earth Day. Hope you are all celebrating Earth Month this month in April. Yay, do what we can to pick it up, America, to clean everything up. So we're going to get started on our agenda. The original opening comments, some current action items, and voting what's going on. I'll just be real brief. We spent the last couple of days in Washington, D.C. at the Everglades Summit, which was called for. There were about 180 people attended. Hey, give you all a hand. Everybody was well represented. A lot of the captains for clean water were there with their ball caps on, which struck a lot of interest in D.C. because apparently they don't see ball caps too often. But out at the bars later at night on Tuesday, everybody's going, "What's that ball cap? What's all that about?" So it was really great, and a lot of representation of industry was there. Scott Deal from Maverick Boats, who's built a new facility on Fort Pierce. A lot of the folks that represent not just the environmental groups, but of course the industry were there. And then, so there was a good summit. We did a lot of good things that were happening on there. So more about that in a minute. We've got to stand up. We've got to pledge our flag to our United States of America. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. All right. We are going to get started. We're up there, and a lot of folks were up there, of course, and doing a lot of walking on the hill the next day with a lot of the congressional leadership. There were about 85 people who did a lot of the lobbying meetings, both Senate and House side. We met with Brian Mast and, of course, Garrett Graves, who's the chair of the subcommittee that hears the water resource bill, and so there were a lot of interest in that. We can get into that when we talk about Senate Bill 10. But the Corps of Engineers is under the gun to try to get this feasibility report done. They have 180 days from submission in March. Come on up, Paul Gray. Well, so they have 180 days to do it from March 26th. That would take them to about October 1st to get it to Congress. But the Corps is fast-tracking that. We've written letters to Secretary James, Assistant Secretary of the Army, to get that fast-tracked. So what's happening, they put out a notice that they are going to hopefully get it done by June. And that means that they're going to accept some comment period. There's already comment period open until the 30th of this month, next Monday. So get your comments in if you want. But that's not the done. It's just checking the feasibility of whether that what the state submitted is going to be feasible to do and work with. The planning, engineering, and design takes place after that. But why we need this report done from the Corps immediately to go to the subcommittee or the Committee on Transportation Infrastructure so that the WRDA bill can include this SB10 project, the EA Reservoir project, into the WRDA bill 2018. Because right now the House and the Senate are starting to consider and mark up a Water Resource Development Act bill for 2018, and as you know, all the water projects around the country are going to be put in there competing for dollars to be appropriated to get that project done. And as you know, the state, through Senate Bill 10, we have put up our funds of $800 million committed and our efforts to say we want this project going now. And so we're telling the federal government, get your project report done, get it into the WRDA bill, and let's get this request in for the funding it needs to appropriate it. So we'll talk about any kind of action you might take. We'll have Secretary James's address posted up there. We should put it on our website, or everybody should have it. Write a personal letter, say how much important it is to get this thing done so we can at least start moving water south.
May not be 100% what we need, only about 56% maybe of the discharges stop, but that's something. And it's also sending about 370,000 acre-feet south to the Everglades in the dry season that needs it. So it's a really important project. It's been on the integrated delivery schedule for a long time, and it wasn't going to get started for a long time, but we fast-tracked it, and hopefully it'll get something going. So that's kind of an update on SB10. We'll talk about more of that later. Unfortunately, also up there, Noah Valentine and Drew Bartlett and others from DEP were up there. He had meetings yesterday, late in the day, with the Department of Interior on the project, on getting those details for the project done. So Secretary Valentine can't be with us today, unfortunately. We had put out a newsletter that Tom Frick is here with us today, and Tom is going to give us some updates on DEP's involvement in our thing once we get that presentation. But we have a couple of quick announcements. I know we'll get to Rivers Kids, Speakers Bureau, and those things at our presentation, but I know Richard Earth from Harbor Ridge has a presentation that he wanted to do. Go ahead. These are always good ones because they include money. Nick Mayer, or
I saw her somewhere.
Nick, stand up.
Nick.
Yay! All right, Nick.
I have money. This is actually my selfish way of getting to stand between two people that I greatly admire. On behalf of, I'm Richard Earth, and I'm the past Commodore of Harbor Ridge Yacht Club. We just had our closing event, and at that closing event, we had a 50-50 drawing. The proceeds of that drawing are to support the Rivers Coalition. Half to the Rivers Coalition and half to the Rivers Kids. So it's my pleasure to present this check for $1,100.
Very much. Wow, awesome. That is awesome. Thank you. And anybody else? It all goes to the cause, and the cause is a great cause. And we thank you very much for any clubs or organizations that do this kind of thing, which you have in the past, many of you. We certainly appreciate that support. George Jones has a quick kind of in memory here.
Yeah, I don't know if many of the folks in this room, probably quite a few, do know the Vatunaks. Charles passed away a couple years back, but Lace Vatunak, they were founding members of the St. Lucie County Conservation Alliance, and were very, very instrumental in a lot of the land purchases early on. Fort Pierce Inlet State Park was one of the first projects they took on and kept condos from going on that. And were very instrumental in becoming a state park. Also, the Savannahs, where they had a huge hand in that property being purchased and set aside and preserved. Lace passed away on Earth Day, which is probably fitting, and she was very, very special to a lot of us because she was all in. Jenny Sherlock has said that she was one of the true early environmentalists in this area. Her and Walter. Walter was in the real estate business, so he kind of knew his way around making sure we got some of these acquisitions done. But they were very, very special people to a lot of us in this room, and I'm greatly honored to mention her at this meeting. I would like, when we're done, to have a moment of silence for her, but I also do want to say that there will be a memorial service for Lace on May 12th. It will be at Yates Funeral Home on 7951 US Highway 1 in Port St. Lucie, and it will be, I think it starts at
2:30.
2:30, yeah, and then Nathaniel Reed will be doing the eulogy for her. Her and Nathaniel, she was the early pioneers. Lace actually worked a lot with Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. One of the quotes she always used to say is, "Marjorie told me never give up," and she never did. And to the very end, she helped us in fighting some issues, Crosstown Parkway going through a state park area. Those types of things she was always instrumental in, and so I would just like to take a moment of silence in honor of Lace. Thank you. If anybody's got any questions, I'll be happy to pass this information along. Maybe we can even post it or I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate. Yeah. Yeah. On this particular thing, Tim?
No, it's about something else.
Well, can we hold it for a little bit? Because at the end, if you look on the agenda, right, before we adjourn, we've got a very important item which is called members' comments and announcements. So we'd like to do it at that time if we can. That's good? Okay, great. We're gonna kind of move into the agenda. But as chairman, I can take a little comment to say, when I came back 40 years ago in '78, I joined the Martin County Conservation Alliance. And Dr. Walter Stokes, other people on that at that time, and the St. Lucie County Conservation Alliance was backed into as very stalwart conservation organizations in our area. We give them a lot of tribute for what they've done. Okay, so moving on, we've got some current action items. We've got River Kids, and we're going to go into our government agency reports from Martin County and the state, and then of course our reports, and then we'll have our member announcements and things that you think of and have in mind. So we want to get right to it. I want to introduce to you Tom Frick. Tom has been with, he's the Division Director of Environmental Assessment and Restoration since 2013. He's been over 23 years in the Department of Environmental Protection and working a lot in our environmental areas. His bachelor degrees come from Florida State University, go Seminoles, but y'all are Gators, so.
No, we're not.
Okay, there we go, University. But, you know, as I mentioned, I saw Noah Valentine. He's come down before to visit us. We had a little meeting with him, and he did a great thing, and then he had to do this Washington thing with us, but he couldn't get the same flight I did out, but Jackie and I seem to get back at the same time. So I don't know why Noah couldn't, but we'll see him next time. I put him on the pin to say, you gotta come and still visit us. You're not off the hook, but we're appreciative of Tom coming here. He's got to drive back to Tallahassee right after this, so he's gonna be available for a few pictures. But Tom, it's yours. Take it away.
Well, thanks, Mark. You got to hold it close?
Yeah.
All right, I'm usually pretty loud. As Mark said, I'm not Secretary Valentine, so I hope that's, you know, I was going to try and play him and tell you that I was Secretary Valentine, and then I saw that you guys actually sent out a picture of him, so I figured I wasn't going to be able to fool anybody with that. But he does, you know, send his regrets that he couldn't be here today. I think he still had some meetings that he was actually doing today up there. So, with that, you know, he knows that, you know, especially these groups like you all are extremely important to our restoration and our protection of our water resources. So, Mark, I'm sure he will take you up on that offer and come down and talk to this group in the future. So yesterday I actually was up in Volusia County with some folks, and we were doing a ribbon cutting for a restoration of Blue Springs up there. And I had told them that I was coming down here, and you know, told them that I was about to disappoint everybody in here that I wasn't Secretary Valentine. But I was talking with Mike Ulrich, who's the Director of the Utilities for Volusia County. And Mike and I go back quite a ways. Actually, I was telling this story. About 6 years ago, Mike came and got a meeting with me, and came in, and it was pretty interesting. As most of the time when there's water quality issues and everything, Mike's concern was that he came in and said, hey, look, you know, Tom, and I would describe it as a semi-cordial meeting, you know, as a first introduction and working on these water issues. But he said, hey, we've got all these issues out there. You know, the water management districts just told me that we have these minimum flows and levels we've got to meet. So we have to put projects, we got to put water in the ground. And now I'm just hearing from you that the water that I have, I can't put it in the ground because that's harming Volusia Springs. And, you know, it's 2011, 2012, so we're right in the middle of recovery and everything. And he said, I have no support, you know, locally. Nobody's really, you know, behind all this. How are we supposed to do this? How am I supposed to do all these things that you're asking me to do? And so we sat down and started talking about it, and really talking about putting together really partnerships. And that's kind of what I'm going to talk about today, and what you all are all about is really those partnerships. Because with that, you know, talking with Mike, he put together a citizens group. They also had a county-wide meeting, that was in 2014, where they started talking about the water quality and water quantity issues that were within that area. And they built this support literally from, 6 years ago from zero. I mean, it was not, it wasn't the same support that you all have here today. I mean, you guys have been together for a while. You've been talking about this, so you're way ahead on these partnerships. But they've done that, and what ended up happening is we had some great projects that came in that would improve both the water quality and water flow to Volusia Springs. And again, just like anywhere else, we're not there yet up there, but the relationship and the partnerships are much stronger today, and we're trying to move those forwards. So it's those types of successes and those types of incremental steps and partnerships that's really, that keeps me doing this job. That's what I look forward to, is working with groups like you all, and trying to come up with locally, how are we going to achieve these issues that we're working on. And so I know we've been talking about water quality issues for quite some time. And as Mark mentioned, there's been a lot of progress on, specifically and especially the Everglades restoration projects. And, Florida has been a leader in that. We've been pushing the federal government and the Corps, with thanks to folks like you all who have been up there, and Mark going up to Washington and saying this is important, because all of you have lived through it. 10, 15 years ago, projects weren't moving forward, and I think one of the big examples of that is the C-44 reservoir, and that project. I mean, that was authorized way back in 2000, 2001, I think, and very little happened on that. But however, in the last 5 or 6 years, we've seen progress, and a lot of that progress is because of you all. It's because the state has been partnering and coming forward to the Corps and to everybody to push those projects along. And the state has put forward about $400 million just on that project alone, and we're going to see the stormwater treatment area of that actually working this year. It's on schedule to be online this year. So that's a big, success. It's not 100%, as Mark said. It's not going to get us there. There's not one single silver bullet that gets us to those success points. But all of these things incrementally do help, and they help push along things like the Corps. They'll be building the reservoir component. I think they're on schedule to have that completed by about 2020, I think. Mark, is that correct? So they're still a little bit behind and still need that, but we will be taking water out and running it through that stormwater treatment area. The state will, because we know we need to treat water from the C-44. We have other projects that we've been working on. The state hasn't been, sitting there just waiting for this panacea, this one project out there. And many of you know that over the last few years, there's been a lot of public-private partnerships to try and get those in the ground and trying to be able to store water, so we don't have those releases to the estuary, and we can protect that. The Calkins project is in the ground and working, and is one of the ones that have gone forward. As Mark mentioned, we have the SB10 reservoir that's been being worked on. The state has delivered that information. The Water Management District, working with them, and the state has delivered that to the Corps. It was in late March. What was the date that you had? 26th. Yeah, March 26th. So that effort is continuing. So nobody's resting on their laurels or saying that one project is going to solve it. And I know you all live this every day, where you have to push these forward, push these projects forward. And I say that because everybody would love there to be one answer. That's really what it comes down to. Is it would be great if we could say, if we could flip this one switch. That's not the way it works with water quality and with a lot of these issues. They've occurred over time. They're gonna take time, and they're gonna take these projects to get there. But we learn a lot as we move forward, and as we are continuing those restoration efforts, and we continue to accelerate and get projects that are in the ground and working. That's really the blueprint of how we're gonna be able to restore and protect our water resources. And so, and I look at that, and some people, like in the Springs areas, are starting from scratch, from 5 or 6 years ago. In other areas, especially the Everglades and down here, we have projects that are going, and sometimes painfully slow, but there are projects that what we need to do is put that effort, identify them, and get them into the ground. So we have plans on those. We just need to continue to get those implemented. My focus is really on the water quality, especially in the estuaries. We've put together over the last 10 years, just in the Indian River Lagoon, St. Lucie estuary area, and I was looking at these, and these numbers were pretty staggering. $180 million in local projects have gone in the ground in the last 10 years, and about $100 million of that in the last 4 years. If you think about it, that is a lot of effort, a lot of projects that are going in the ground. A lot of things that have been on the books and have been planned are getting done. So that's certainly significant. I know up in the in the upper part of the Indian River Lagoon, there's a lot going to dredging, which is taking our past concerns and really trying to get those out of the water. And we've also been putting money towards monitoring and making sure we know what's going on into our lagoon areas. And over the last 3 or 4 years, we've had over $5 million that have gone directly out to the community here to do that monitoring. That's on top of what the state does through either the Water Management District or through the DEP. So there's quite a bit of partnership that's going on, for us to be able to get to those to that end of good water quality. Now, as far as where we are in our basin management action plans, our restoration programs, we have, 10 years ago, we did not have BMAPs in these areas. We've adopted those restoration plans, and they're coming around to that first, as we call, 5-year, phase check-in. And actually, we're developing that right now for the St. Lucie BMAP. So we had a public meeting that was earlier this week, and to talk about that BMAP, or that that 5-year check-in. And it's critical that we get inputs. We know we're not there yet. We're at the beginning stages of that restoration. We need to continue the momentum going forward. And some of the things that you're going to see is over the next couple of years is trying to identify these local projects, these partnerships. How are we going to get there? We're not going to be able to get there in 5 years, and maybe 10 years, but trying to get those long-term projects so we can move forward and continue to clean up our waters. We've learned a lot around the state in the last 10 years about looking at various sources, especially some of the local sources, and the department has really looked to try and remediate some of the local sources as much as possible. You saw from us, we put forward 2 years ago. It was an effort for us to be able to deal with septic tanks. We've learned, especially in the Springs areas, that in some instances, not all septic tanks are bad, but in some instances that they are contributing to our water bodies. And so we were looking at areas to be able to identify those areas where they all are vulnerable. And so we put forward trying to get some legislation and some dollars on the order of looking at $20 million annually to deal with some of these issues. So there's a lot of effort that's going on, both on the financial end, trying to get money to get these projects completed, and there's a lot of effort that's going on the restoration end of trying to identify what are the projects that are going to get us to our ultimate goal. All of that is occurring now. It's really, you know, you all probably know this, trying to keep up with everything that's going on, whether it's Everglades or whether it's the estuary or the Indian River Lagoon. There seems to be a lot of effort that's going on, and a lot of things. So we certainly appreciate, you know, the input, understanding where, you know, where things are. I know I can't do it from being in Tallahassee. I'm not here every day. You all are here every day. So we really look for that kind of input on what are the problems and what do we need to do to solve those. So with that, I think, are we having a...
Yeah, we're gonna have some time for questions, and I'll kind of start off with it too, Tom, if you don't mind. You know, during our crisis times of 2016 and 2013, we've had huge algae blooms coming from the lake with the discharges. One of the responsibilities under DEP was to try to find out where those locations are and inform the public, work with the Department of Health to try to work with that. And we really didn't get a lot of satisfaction out of DEP's kind of involvement on where those kind of blooms are, where they're happening or not happening. There were obviously concentrations of them in local marinas and stuff, which were very newsworthy and all over the news.
Right.
But how can DEP really needs to coordinate and do a better job, I think, in doing that? Can they come to a better thing? I mean, we're going to have more of these crises coming up, but that's a big water quality issue that affects human health.
Testing.
Yeah,
Testing.
we need testing, or, you know, more of that kind of. And it seemed like every time there was a shortness of staff, you didn't have enough staff to get out there and do that. Is that the problem? Is that the issue?
No, I mean, we had partnered with the water management districts and also, you know, some of the local governments to come out, and FWC to come in and collect. I think the, you know, what we did prior to that, there is a coordination effort that goes on between Fish and Wildlife, FWC, DEP, and Department of Health. And that effort had been in place since about 2007. So there's a coordinated effort where we deal with algal blooms around the state. And, you know, as you mentioned, in 2016, we really needed to step that up. And so I hope everybody had seen that, you know, we put a hotline for people to call, just like FWC does with, you know, fish kills. We identified a website so you can actually see where we're going and sampling. You can go out there. You don't have to call in. You can actually, you know, email in or get on that website and put in where you're seeing the blooms. But, you know, the response is very similar to what happens with fish kills. We can go out there and we can monitor some of the conditions, which we do, and we have monitoring out there. But really, when the blooms come, you know, we need to know where they are because they're very sporadic. And one of the things that, you know, that we've seen is, and you probably all have seen this in a number of areas, it could be here, you know, one day and then, you know, it's not, and the next day it shows back up. You know, so we really need to get that response so we can get folks out there to do that monitoring, so we can work with the Department of Health to do the postings as well. I think you know, the biggest end on that side is, okay, what do you do when you have these long-lasting blooms that are in these areas? And so, you know, we over the last couple of years have put out a request for proposals for people with technologies to come into the department, basically to submit their technologies to get on a state contract. So if or when these blooms occur, that they could be deployed out there, sort of as an emergency response, you know, kind of a condition, or at the beginning of, you know, when they start, you know, coming together. I can tell you we did not get a very good response, which I think would shock everybody in this room. It shocked me. You know, we put out this response. We had lots of different groups who had said, and I think they approached all of you about, hey, you know, we think we can solve this. We gave them an opportunity. I think we had 2 that submitted. I may be wrong on that.
Well, it seems like that the response, since the governor declared a state of emergency for this area at that time, it seems like the departments should have some sort of emergency response teams and not only coordinate amongst agencies, but come to the site, come here and, put more boots on the ground kind of thing during that time of emergency.
Right.
And we honestly didn't see a lot of that.
And that's what we were,
Locally, we were concerned that, hey, where is Department of Environmental? Where is Department of Health? Where is FWC? Why aren't they here on the ground doing this?
right, and that's what we were trying to put together is that response, to be able to do that.
That's where we had that. So, question,
I think
we'll
that's
take,
a good idea.
we'll take one here and then we'll come over to Marty and then.
Tom, first of all, thank you for being here today. I believe you have a science background, is that kind of the way you work your way up to the?
Sure.
Yeah.
I have a chemistry degree and I spent about a decade doing
Okay.
environmental field work, yes.
My question is, and I appreciate all the years of service you've had with the DNP, but have you seen a change in the department or directives of the use of the word climate change?
Climate change.
All right.
I mean,
So he can say that, I mean, I think that's his.
It's happening.
That's his point, right? You're allowed to say climate change.
we've never not been allowed to say
Well,
climate change.
that was the
And,
question,
yeah.
the word on the street was that was prohibited from being spoken or being written down.
Right. I mean, that was never a directive to me or my staff or anything that I ever heard.
Does the department have a climate change group or a team that's within the department?
Correct. Out of our coastal office, that we actually just hired a resiliency person to focus specifically on that. That's been a priority for Secretary Valentine.
Okay.
And so that and she's out of Kevin Cleary's our coastal office.
Great, Marty, and then we'll go to Daryl, or Marty and Jim.
Good morning, thank you so much for coming. I know that's a long drive home in the afternoon, you get home to dark. But thank you. So clarification, Martin County had septic tank inspections, and our elected officials legislated it away from us. The state's all worried about inspecting septic tanks. We could have had a 10 or 15-year baseline on what's really going on, and the state took it away. On the water monitor, yeah, the state gave like $5 million to the lagoon, and they put a bunch of, 23, 25 Kilroys and 3 or 4 Lobos in the river. And as soon as the data started coming back, they defunded it all. I have a question for you, sir. We are living in a liver cancer cluster, and there are those in this room that believe that the cyanobacteria that the state says is a quote-unquote